Good morning, everyone. Brian here again with BMK Retro Gaming. Usually you guys wouldn't get a Friday video from me, but we do have something a bit special to go over. Besides that, I am currently wearing my new Papa Pete t-shirt. You're welcome, Pete. You guys might recall that I think it was around a year and a half or two ago, I got a 4-port Atari 5200, which is supposed to be featured with my other stuff on this channel. Excuse me. Making sure things are all clear there. And I tried hooking it up and all, and well, besides the fact I didn't have a very reliable controller, which I still have to work on getting worked out, we'll discuss in the next few minutes, I plugged it up and couldn't get any sound output at first. And some friends mistakenly had told me that they thought that at least with a 4-port model, it usually won't actually hook up and work entirely properly with a modern flat screen TV. Well, then this morning I was watching a video from one of my old subscriptions, who I still enjoy watching, who is called Replay Retro. I forget if his name is Matthew or what, who does most of the videos there. And it turns out that there is, if you actually hook up, it will actually work with a modern flat screen TV, even a 4-port model. But if you tend to hook it up wrong, there are a couple things that can happen. Usually where things like the fact I wasn't getting any audio output, no sound, can be one of the effects. So I went ahead and I'm like, it can't be that simple, and tried hooking it up again the proper way as he had described, and lo and behold, I have sound output, I have audio output, so yes, it does work. And although I still do need a more modern, reliable controller for it, I do have a little bit of an arrangement that should take care of that in due time. So we're going to go ahead and get an introduction to Atari 5800 gaming on BMK Retro Gaming going here. Now here is a system I bought, this gigantic beast of a console, and it's heavy as heck. I think you guys can probably see that okay. I do have it with an original box, as you can see. It's relatively nice. I hope everything isn't rattling around in a bad way in there. And here's the back too. It's in pretty good condition. And again, it says what it was originally called Advanced Video Entertainment System, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, it became later known as the Super System. Anyway, let me put that down here. You know, I don't think they actually made a larger home video game console than this one. Or if they have, I haven't heard of it. There have been some which might have come close, but I don't think they've topped this yet. This massive monstrosity here is the 4-port Atari 5200. We can see here it has 4 proprietary ports down here, vents both top and bottom side. As far as I understand, some of them may just be for aesthetic looks purposes and don't really vent. Well, it appears only one. I think the right side or left side one is actually real and does vent anything. Then, of course, we have on back, you have an expansion port here, which never actually got used for anything. And on bottom, you have your cable, connector cable, which actually coils back in and around to be placed back in and coils out. And, of course, you have your cartridge slot on top. And on very top, you have this upper flap, which contains a compartment which was for holding your controllers. This is the one I have left. When I had some stuff in a storage space which got kind of broken into, the other 3, which none of them were any good either, really, were all in a box that was stolen with other scrap metal copper stuff. So, and of course we have the cartridge port. We have a nice more or less metallic plate here. It says Atari 5200. Well, let me set this over up here. Despite being one heck of a monstrosity, it does fortunately still fit onto my table, if just barely. Believe me, my Atari 7800 is probably almost, not twice as small, but maybe about 3/4 of the size. Here we have the basic controller. You have your analog, it's a non-digital joystick. It moves in all different directions, and it's pretty cool in a way. It lets you move in all different types of ways and all. The only thing with it is it does not really self-center. You see they use this plastic boot here with no spring inside, so it does not center itself. You have to manually center it when you center on games. Then, of course, on the side you have 1 and 2 apiece of fire buttons, which mine on this one do not work. As well as you have a numeric keypad, much like the ColecoVision and Intellivision would have. Most of these don't work very well. I think 1 and 2 kind of do. Don't know about the rest. I haven't given them do anything. And something that's kind of unique for the time. You have a start button here. This one does actually work. A pause button, which, as far as I know, is one of the very first pause buttons on a controller or otherwise on a home video game console. And a reset button, and on this one all 3 of them actually do work for the majority of the time. Just not the fire buttons in the majority of these. And the joystick works pretty well. On my others, nothing really worked that well at all, of the other 3 that I had with it. One reason why they made it a 4-porter is because they were hoping that it would be able to take, multiplayer gaming from just 2-player up to 3 and 4 and be a big hit. Well, didn't go off without a hitch. Anyway, it was released in 1982 by Atari Corporation and lasted in November 1982. It was beat to market by the ColecoVision in August of 82, so just barely. I used to kind of mistakenly think the ColecoVision was a bit later, but going back over the information now, I know better. And it lasted through 1984, so it got about a good 2 years. And although it didn't do as spectacularly for reasons we'll discuss in a minute as it could have, didn't come anywhere near the 30 million overall units sold to the Atari VCS 2600, its immediate predecessor. It did sell 1 million units, which is decent. The ColecoVision and Intellivision both, at least for what's known, sold probably about 2 million or so apiece. And if you count what wouldn't have been in there, when they were game ready to discontinue it or even considering it and announce that, whatever, what sold, in that time period, could be a bit higher. It could be closer to 1.5 million, 2 million. Just like the Atari VCS 2600 could well be way over 30 million that sold, and they just didn't track it, and report those numbers at that point. Or the ColecoVision and Intellivision. They could both be anywhere from 3 to 6 million units sold altogether, and we wouldn't really know that because they wouldn't have been tracking the figures after a point. That's always, a possibility in there and all. Anyway, as for chips, it relies for its CPU chip on a custom MOS technology 6502 running at 1.79 megahertz. And for graphics, it uses an Antic chip and a GTI 8 chip, which I'm guessing the TI-8, similar to the TI, in name to the TIA from the Atari VCS 2600, maybe a little bit of an advanced version of that or something, though I'm not sure. And for sound, we have a Pokey chip, which provides about 4-channel sound, which was pretty impressive for the time. And, well, let's go ahead and get into, before I get into all that, there were about 3 reasons why this didn't do as well as it could have. One thing was the controllers, although they were not very reliable, and really to keep them working, you had to take them apart, clean them, and put them back together about every 2 weeks. Though there did become like the Wico command controller, even back then, there were some aftermarket or alternatives, and there are some modern rebuilds. My friend Aaron Spinks, as a matter of fact, is planning to build me one, hopefully in the next month or two, so that I will have a more reliable one than this one. Usually he's a bit high on them at about 135, but I'd sent him something this past year, and that covered a little part of the cost. And we're friends too, so he told me, we'll call it about 75 when I can do it and we'll get it done. He's in the process of moving into a new residence, going from renting right now. So hopefully that will be done in maybe the next month or two, and I'll be able to go ahead and pay him up on and get a reliable controller out. If this thing had turned out to really need a modification for AV output and just a more modern, power source rather than what it actually uses to get where it would work right and output sound and play and everything, then he was planning at one point to do that for me too, but we never got around to it. But apparently, as of now, I found out it doesn't really necessarily need it, so not a big concern at the moment. Anyway, one of the other issues was, although basically the Atari 5200 it started out kind of in 1978 when Nolan Bushnell was still part of the company and still in charge of it. Before the sale to Warner, he realized that more than likely the technology for this, the Atari VCS 2600 would be surpassed by its competitors within a very short number of years, maybe 1 to 3 years. And he was kind of right. The Intellivision came out into test market 78 and was, by the end of that period to 79, was already hitting shelves in its main shelf life, so... And it really was a fair deal more capable than the Atari VCS 2600 in many ways. Anyhow, it turned out he was right. After the company was sold to Warner Communications, who really wanted to stick with the Atari VCS 2600 and milk it for all they could since it was successful, and didn't want to listen about releasing a successor, part of the reason why Bushnell got out of the company, among others. Well, later on, as the time this was being ready for release in 82 and all, they decided to dust back off that old, mostly 78 model that Bushnell's team and all have been working on, work it up into pretty much this, and re-release it. And basically what all is sorry, just looking at a little spot back there. More or less, it is a kind of a repackaging of the Atari 8-bit computer lines, 400 and 800 computers, into a home video game console form, which they had gotten into at the time, doing the 400 and 800 computers, seeing the success and high price points of home computers up to that point, and had decided to go that route and kind of not get into this yet. Well, since this was being worked up and they realized the Intellivision and such were giving them a lot of console trouble, dusted it back off, worked into this, and so yeah, this is basically similar to an Atari 8-bit computer, like a 400 or 800 packed into a home video game console form. Which is not really a bad idea for the time, just not very good implementation. But that comes around to one of the other things which it kind of got on the nerves of and was a bad selling point for, one reason why it wasn't so successful is a lot of gamers didn't seem to understand, well, hey, why can't we just play our Atari 800 or 400 games, our 8-bit games on this thing? Well, it was designed with cartridges different from the Atari VCS 2600 and certainly from the Atari 8-bit like these. No real, top label portion, and just a front one. It's a fair deal wider than Atari VCS 2600 cartridge. Similar design and all here and all, with the keys to open up and the contacts are inside. I have quite a few of these original libraries, some sent by friends, some which came with it, and since I've got this thing back out, the ones I didn't test before, I've tested them all, and they all do come up and work, so some may need a little bit of contact cleaning. Anyway, the cartridge slot would not fit for an Atari 8-bit cartridge, for one thing. And, also the the Atari 8-bit computers use basically for their RAM 10 kilobytes of RAM, whereas the Atari 5200 was scaled back and only uses 2 kilobytes, 2K. So there's a fair chance it wouldn't be entirely compatible with them on every level anyway, because, you know, a lot less RAM, so... Part of that may have been attributable to the computer and home video game console divisions of Atari at that time were kind of not supposedly getting along well and kind of competing with each other, so it may have been kind of intentional sabotage in some ways, though who knows for sure. So that's part of the reason why that didn't go over. And then the third thing that really got it was, you know, there's no real backwards compatibility with the Atari VCS 2600 games. Which, why gamers were expecting that when it hadn't even existed with anything else yet, who knows, but, yeah, I can understand. You have a huge library of Atari VCS 2600 games. Well, if you're going to maybe trade off your Atari VCS 2600 and may not even keep it to get an Atari 5200, do you really want to trash all those games with it? Yeah, I can understand. So that was kind of a sore point. Eventually, there was an adapter released, which would work with the revised. They were remodeled to be just 2-port instead of 4-port models a bit later on, which we're releasing. And this adapter plugs into the cartridge port, and you plug your Atari VCS 2600 cartridge into the adapter, and it will play them. At first, the 4-port models would not do that, but Atari would modify them for free so that they would be able to accommodate it and use it. So that kind of solved that, but that all happened pretty late in the console's life, about 2-year main market life. So not a big impact. And there were also plans to introduce a part that would make the controllers where they'd be more stable, and you wouldn't have to clean them all the time, but they never got around to doing that either. And certainly they never really created cross-compatibility with the Atari 8-bit computer cartridges, so... They kind of were on there, they kind of resolved one issue late on, and the other they almost got to, but didn't quite. And the third one they never even touched. So those are 3 good reasons why the console didn't do as well as it could have, and I can understand all of them. One of the other things was, you know, back in those days, you'd buy your TV, fridge, whatever, and people would be like, they were made back then instead of like the kind of, I guess you could say, junk culture stuff we have these days to last pretty much forever. You're talking about the darn thing may well outlive you without you ever having to get a replacement. And people were thinking it'd be pretty much the same with home video game consoles. Okay, why do I need to upgrade from my Atari VCS 2600 to an Atari 5200? When I've only had my Atari VCS 2600 for so many years... gamers and consumers really didn't get the concept of the idea that this was the next step, maybe not the next generation, but the next step up in technology and all. Certainly all this puts out better sound and video quality, graphical quality than the Atari VCS 2600 could, and except for the drawbacks, is really fun and good to play with, but people just didn't get that. It's a next step up, and that's why to invest in it. Maybe some people did get because it did sell 1 million units, or maybe just kids just bugged their parents enough and all. And the price point was actually a bit higher too, you know. Not super high, but pretty high. So anyway, that's what there is with that, generally speaking. Now, give me just a second, we're going to run a little test here. Okay, so the TV is actually pretty far away right now. But, just to show you guys this thing actually works and everything, here we're going to check out one little game I got going here. This is Kangaroo. And as you can probably hear right there, unlike when I first tried it out, we've got sound. Ooh, got a fire button to work for a second. Not very well, but yeah, oh yeah. Aren't you? monkey boy. Uh-oh. Didn't even realize I had one fire button that would work right. Oh. Can I make it? Apparently no. Not yet. Uh-oh. Arr. Okay, let's do that one more time. That was fun. This is not technically a game review or anything. I'm just, checking in with what I can get it to do right. Darn you. Hop, mother kangaroo. Forget about the monkey. Darn it. One more go. I actually tried this a bit earlier and couldn't get very far. On the Atari VCS 2600 port of this game, I can at least clear one screen, but this one, more of a tough pain in the neck. No, you don't. Oh, we're not going to do that all over again. Fortunately, I can reset it. Maybe I can't right now. Yeah, I did. That's one of the things about this one, since the joystick does not really self-center, you have to recenter it yourself. Which is actually not a bad idea on mini games, but it doesn't work out so well on some others. Why, you sorry little... I'll try that one more time. I want to do it from the beginning. I can make a monkey out of me that easy. Oh wait, not advanced difficulty, you silly thing. How do you get to advanced difficulty, for crying out loud? See if I can actually change that. That's one thing about it. I was trying to play it on advanced difficulty, and unfortunately, since I can't get my other keypad keys to work, there's no way to change it so that it's not on advanced. Oh well. Try it one more time as is. Wondering why it was giving me such a tough time with it at first. Shouldn't anyway. Uh-oh. Missed. Darn. Well, that didn't work out so well. Oy, oy, oy. One left. Okay, well that's enough of that. Must have one more shot. Got some of my other fire buttons somehow. So they sometimes do still work, but I didn't think so. But I can't get it off with advanced difficulty, and that's enough of that. Okay, so as we have seen and can now, and you've definitely heard, my Atari 5200 does put out sound. What I was thinking of, from the video that I saw from Replay Retro, which might have been kind of at fault, though I'm not 100% certain is, I actually have two of these things, so I can show you guys here a little bit. This, although this one's kind of out of shape and probably wouldn't work right anyway, though I could possibly get it back in there. This goes into your what do they call it? Coaxial cable output, which my TV does have. And then the part from your the RF from your unit goes into this little piece here, and from your power brick here, this is supposed to plug in right there. And the thing is, when you do it, you're supposed to not plug this into the wall, the outlet, until after you set up everything else and hooked up to your TV. If you do plug it in first to the wall outlet, you'll get a spark, which I'm not sure why or how, but that's the thing that's supposedly can kind of mess up some things like whether you get sound output or not. Whereas if you do it right and plug everything up and then plug it into the outlet in the wall, you should get no spark and everything should work just fine. I don't know why it is that way or if that's even exactly what it was or not. But as it goes, doesn't matter. I've got it now. You guys heard I've got sound, so all up and going. Now, since I can't use my controllers to control everything perfectly, I'm going to have to kind of experiment. Because you guys know when I usually introduce a new channel category on my channel, I like to start with the original pack-in game for that console. But as it goes, that will depend on whether or not the pack-in game, which I do have a copy of, see where it is, Super Breakout, if I can actually get it to control. Earlier, I couldn't get the fire buttons to let me launch the ball, so I don't know if it will work or not. But I've seen here with Kangaroo, I do have two fire buttons here that seem to work at least part of the time, so maybe they will. If not, I do know of one other game I've got in here which will serve as a substitute, and then once I have reliable control from Mr. Spinks, we'll get into, Super Breakout as a packing game and all later on if needs be. Now, since this actually released about 2 to 3 months, the ColecoVision released August '82 and this was November '82, This means I will be throwing it into the regular lineup behind the ColecoVision. So let's see, I've got the Atari VCS 2600 original library review coming up next Wednesday, so it should be about 4 weeks out before we get to it. So there's just this for now. And in that time, I may well get that reliable controller from Mr. Spinks. He may get settled in, may happen. Or maybe between the first video and the next one, which would be 4 weeks later. This will, of course, mean my cycle will go from 4 weeks to 5 weeks, though may skip the Atari 5200 a bit until I have everything fully in order, but we'll at least get the first one going in about 4 weeks. Now, in the meantime, I do have a few recommendations and links for you guys. There's Replay Retro has a good video reviewing the console. Cinema Massacre takes a look into it with the Angry Video Game Nerd. Player One Start, Tyler, who I've followed for a while. This one's from where he restores and reviews one. Frame Raider, also, which he's not a big fan either. And this Newsmakers Games has two, going over the history of it all. I will leave links to all that for you guys, as well as a link to the Wikipedia article on the Atari 5200 for those who might care to read up further. Anyway, this video may be about to become a two-parter if I don't go ahead and cut it off, but hey, now we got one more console that I know is working and should be going off on, that's about to be added to the channel lineup, so you guys keep an eye out. About 4 weeks from this next Wednesday, we should have some Atari 5200. I just wanted, after I discovered all this and got it in order, to let you guys know. And here's do our little introduction, which here it is to the Atari 5200 gaming on BMK Retro Gaming for you guys. If you enjoyed my channel's content, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And please don't hesitate to leave any questions, comments, or suggestions down in the comments section below. And this Sunday, Prototype, ProBrew, or Homebrew review video coming up. Keep your eyes peeled, and you should have seen the announcement post by then. In the meantime, you guys take care, have a wonderful Friday, and hopefully I will see you again on Sunday.